clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. It's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's spoken a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, his buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything is going on here. Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question, why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes.
Well, let me respond to the first part, as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife, and you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million, and someday you're gonna have to explain why did you get 3.5. I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that, and through John Wycliffe, who's fantastic, he said the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose, because there's been nobody tougher than Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, I got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family, but what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clear it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Vice President Biden, you may respond. And then I want to follow up on the elections if you
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns. 22 years. Go look at it. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas. So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return and stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants, underwrote it. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it. And it'll show how successful and great this company is. But much more important than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid. Because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that. Nobody told me that. Excuse me. And it wasn't written. Whenever they write this thing, they keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. You made $3.5 million, Joe, and your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know, maybe you're not, but you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions about all of this. I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you have a deadline for when you're going to release them?
I get treated worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because there are a lot of people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decided to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than pay. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to release your tax. Nobody knows, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on. Come on. So,
President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. 48 million. I guarantee if I spend 1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken, I mean, your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, John, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. With regard to Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about What are you talking about? China. I have not had it. The only guy who made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
Okay, just one thing.
Very
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. $183, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm going to let the Vice President respond quickly, and then I need to get to a question to you.
No basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflict of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was open to do. It was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money.
President Trump, thank you. We do need to move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about China. Let's talk about China more broadly. There have, of course, President Trump has said that they should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property, you have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, and when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said, we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger down at all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You play by them or you're going to pay the price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it. And that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, and let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, I have to respond to that.
Okay. Very quickly, and then we're going to move on to North Korea.
$1.5 billion from China to after spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force Two. Number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy though, what specifically are you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You said you're going
First of all,
to pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
That's what?
Taxpayers' money.
I know the taxpayers. It's called China. China paid $28 billion, and you know what they did to pay China? They devalued their currency, and they also paid out. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our Greek farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% for dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry,
Okay.
and now we have a steel
Okay,
industry.
Vice President Biden, your response, please.
My response is, look, this isn't about. There's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues. It's not about his family and my family. It's about your family. And your family's hurting badly. If you're making less than, if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires or ball because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making. And the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont, they're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want to talk about North Korea. I do want to turn to 10 seconds, Mr. President. 10 seconds.
Political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks. The family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk about North Korea.
Politician.
Okay.
That's why I got elected. Now,
Let's
let's get off the subject of China. Let's look around, sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times. You've talked about your beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range missile test. And yet North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental ballistic missile and continues to develop its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next one.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House. Right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with is North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea. Guess what? It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability. In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship, and there's no war. And you know, about 2 months ago, he broke into a certain area. They said, oh, there's going to be trouble. I said, no, they're not, because he's not going to do that. And I was right. Look, instead of being in a war where millions of people, Seoul, you know, is 25 miles away, millions and millions, 32 million people in Seoul, millions of people would be dead right now.
President Trump, that's 30 seconds. Thank you. Vice President Biden, to you, North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to bring in this persistent threat?
Because I make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's the reason. I made it clear as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea? I said, because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they are much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. You said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Are there any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity to get the Korean Peninsula should be a nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to American families.
They tried to meet with
10
him.
seconds,
They
President.
tried to meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like Obama. He didn't like him. He wouldn't do it.
Okay,
No,
I'm
for a
going
fact, they
to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't do
move
it.
on.
And it's okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good relationship with leaders of other countries is a good
We
thing.
have a lot of questions to get to.
Now,
Your
so
response.
And we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize you. We're going to continue to push stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And it
let's
didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's move
Excuse
on
me.
and talk
He
about
left me a mess.
President Trump. Okay, we
They
need to move
left
on.
me a mess. North Korea was a mess. And in fact, if you remember the first 3 months,
Questions tonight.
there was a very dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit. It was a very, they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of the issues that's most important to them is health care, as you both know. Today there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and health care is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away and you have 2 minutes uninterrupted?
First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision. Run it as well as you can to make people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time. And I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care. Far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care. People that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families, under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine. He won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care. And we're going to do even better.
Okay, Vice President Biden, yes, this is for you. Your health care plan calls for building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. Become Biden-care. Public option is an option that says that if you, in fact, do not have the wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically enroll, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen. Secondly, we're going to make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now by allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance, the reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I did not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None. Zero. You can't do it in ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting for 17, 18, 19, 20. The fact, I still have 50 more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of this terrible handling of the COVID virus and economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions, and all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
I have a follow-up for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine. What do you say to people who have concerns that your health care plan, which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government?
Let's say it's ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're the idea that the fact that there's a public option where people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think healthcare is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable healthcare. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions as well as a whole range of other people who in fact are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick? Because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone. We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate. That's what I do.
He was there for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. He's vice president. I mean, she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders and wants it even more. Bernie Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like you went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania, and he says, "Oh, we're going to have fracking." And you never ask that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this. I have to say, but somebody should ask the question. He goes for a year. There will be
We have a number of topics.
No, but that's the question.
We're going to get to it.
It's the same thing with socialized medicine.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care. Period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care, lower premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy better plans, cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on healthcare. Not a thing.
So when he says public option, he's talking about socialized medicine and and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare and destroying your Social Security, and this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay, let's hear
impossible to work with this.
He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that are going to destroy Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary of Medicare said, if in fact, at Social Security, if in fact he continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All right, let's move on. Mr. President, I have to move on to the next question.
They said the stock market will boom if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's move on to the next question very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming is his only measure of what's happening. Where I come from in Scranton and Claremont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more. $700 billion more. because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about
401ks, President, 401ks are through the roof. The stock are through the roof. And he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of time before he even knew it.
We're going to move on to the next
And
question.
the people of Pennsylvania,
Let me move on to my next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work. And as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get it. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President.
You know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why ain't he talking to his Republican friends?
Let me follow up with you, Vice President.
We made it
Because let me ask Vice President Biden the question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I haven't. They passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This Heroes Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budget. The states have to balance their budget, so they have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mr. McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter
All
with
that was
you?
passed in the House was a bailout of badly run, high crime, Democrat, all run by Democrats, cities and states. It was a way of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We want to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
If I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat. I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is America, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue. Cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen. Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 minimum
I
wage.
do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to immigration.
He said we have to help our small businesses by raising the minimum wage. It's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
We have to
different.
help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their
You
employees.
said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Is that still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but I really like what I read in the second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, every in different places, I know different places, they're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would
Okay,
be a
President Trump, thank you. Quick response, Vice President Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen. And we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Our children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers. So we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in from...
But how will we reunite
Let me just
these
tell you,
kids with their
let me
families?
just say, they built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages. And then they had a picture in a certain newspaper. And it was a picture of these horrible cages. And they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you have a
They built
plan to
cages.
reunite the kids?
Yes, we're working on it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. They real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes that bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a question.
Listen, they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
They
to
did
that?
it. We changed.
did not
They built the cages. Who built the cages, Jim?
Let's talk about
Who built the cages,
Let's
Jim?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Listen,
you
I will
about
say this. They went down, we brought reporters, everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
Some of them haven't been reunited.
But just ask one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask you about your immigration policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country, to put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they go into a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River and it's illegal. And you say, oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are mom says over 20,000 were first responders. out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
Listen, he had 8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've changed without having a specific. We got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released, and guess what? They showed up for a hearing. This is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that you seek asylum based on the following premise: why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
President Trump, your response.
So
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It
on.
just shows that he has no understanding of immigration of the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You did very nicely. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay, President Trump, let's give Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the
You
next
don't know the
section.
law, Joe.
Vice President Biden, your response.
No, they're always telling you simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
All right, let's
But
move
we don't have to worry about it.
on.
It's terminated. That's all.
Let's move on to the next
Yeah,
section.
125 kids not know where in God's name they're going to be in lost their parents.
Good.
All right, let's talk about our next section, which is race in America. And I want to talk about the way Black and Brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has a graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what's going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, yes sir, no sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it. We've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things, just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, He's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators. And he said that. He said it's super predators. And they could never live that down. 1994, new crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform. Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance of doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture. And everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. The black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding. And I did 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them. And they like me and I like them. But I saved it. Colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that,
My response to that is I never, ever said what you accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is the guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is the guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of what the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact that 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that in fact initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation, not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't he do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't he do it? Vice President, you keep talking about all these things you're going to do, and you're going to do this, but you were there just a short time ago, and you guys did nothing. We did, Joe. I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama. Because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
I'll tell you what, I hope he doesn't look at me because what's happening here is you know who I am. You know who he is.
So
You know his character. You know
that's
my
kind of taking a quick stop, I think. So this is, I guess, the state of the party, I guess. Here we are. Here at Rue Bourbon. I think we're on question number 5 here. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
politician. So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. No, they're calling you a corrupt politician. Nobody.
I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about race. President Trump is talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
There are 50 former national television stars who said that what he's accused me of is a Russian play. They have said that this has
I'm just gonna roll. Let's try this here.
So what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes in accept
Let's try looking at this angle.
Back in the day, yeah.
we're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President, you
There
described
you go.
the Black Lives Matter movement as a civil
Sorry.
movement. You shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. Every single American who says
Very
that
nice.
kind of language from the president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife.
Well, it was the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter. They were chanting, pigs in the blanket, talking about this case, pigs on our list, pigs in the blanket, fire. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
What do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't know what to say. I got criminal justice reform done, and prison reform, and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark. But I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's getting rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says to them about the poor boys. Last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy is a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
You made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said you're Abraham Lincoln.
where did that? No. You said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm
I
saying,
say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
oh God.
tens of thousands of black men, mostly in jail.
All right, let me ask
Remember,
Vice
because if
President
you look
Biden.
at what's happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that I
Biden
treated them.
about
Just look at what's happening out there.
Just if you want to interview
Chance
him,
to respond within this context.
Oh, where's
Yeah,
she?
yeah, yeah.
Supported in the 80s and 90s, contributed to the incarceration of
Actually, I'm thinking about talking to Kurt, but yeah, that's not
I
bad.
just like if she's like 19, I just like giving her practice. And she's gonna go a long way. It's not like, you know.
Whose families are still to this day.
I'll give it a talk. She free right now?
One of the things
Let's
is
do this. I'm running video on that one, and I'm running live here. So, yeah, let's do that.
I know, it's let me know.
What's her name?
Geneva.
That's why I've been arguing that in fact we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board.
I'm going
That's
to
why we
butcher
should
this.
spend
So.
money. That's why I set up drug courts, which are never funded by Republican friends. They
Right.
should not be going to jail for a drug
Try not
or
to
an alcohol
offend
problem.
more people than I
They should
already
be
have
going
to.
into treatment. That's what we've been
like,
trying to do.
Indus
That's what I'm going to get done because I think the American people have now seen And in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws related to drugs. But they were not in the crime.
Why didn't he get that? See, it's all called no action with this politicians. Why didn't he get that? That's what I would do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, you lead, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Why are you saying you're going to get it done? Because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a lot of it done. We released 38,000. They got 38,000 prisoners. You got 38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change this terrible policy.
Here's the question. Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I want to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get into your 8 years of the You know what I joke? Because you're all talk and no action.
Vice President Biden, then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. Yes.
You gotta talk them into it, you know.
Alright,
You gotta talk them into
we're
it.
going to move on to our next section.
Like I did with criminal justice reform. I had to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen, we're running out of time, so we gotta get on to climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change. President Trump, you say that environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden, you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry. Here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice. They would take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of millions of jobs, thousands and thousands of companies because of the Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
We
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
Climate change, climate warming, global warming is an existential threat to humanity. We have a moral obligation to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 years of this meeting, eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit the emissions. That's the position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as the people worried about jobs to support my climate plan, because what it does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market in the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that we're going to take 4 billion existing billion buildings and two existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating a significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean our health and our jobs are at stake. That's what's happening. And right now, by the way, Wall Street firms indicated that my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street, and I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump,
They came out and said very strongly that $1,500 will be taken away from families under his plan. That his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, if you look at his economic plan, you know, development AOC plus 3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC plus 3. Nothing. Their real plan, of course, is $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they want to make bigger windows and smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it could be one. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't know how people could think it. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build new buildings with little, tiny, small windows. And many other things. And many other things.
let me have the Vice President. We have a lot more questions to get to. So let's hear from the Vice President. I have a number one
I
question.
don't know where it comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers. $100 trillion. He's made a break. This plan was endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Labor, because they know the future lies. Future lies must be able to breathe, and they know there are good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is the electric, solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer. Windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, $45-50 an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump, please respond to that.
We are energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive, kills all the birds, it's very intermittent, got a lot of problems, and you have to make the windows, you have fuel in China, and the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing. Solar. I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete for the world. So it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world, but if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want, and what about fracking?
Never said I oppose fracking.
You said
I did show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is he's lying.
Would you rule out banning fracking?
I do rule out banning fracking because the answer we need other industries to transition to get to ultimately complete zero emissions by 2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking. Capture the emissions from the gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money and doing it. It's a transition to that.
I have one more question on this.
Excuse me, he was against fracking. He said it. I'm going to show that to you tomorrow. I am against against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania, he'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said, no fracking, no oil on federal
Let
land.
me ask this final question in this section, and then I will move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families live another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, or Black, or Asian, it's 9 times greater the percentage gain than it was under, in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it, and I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. We saved it. We got, say what you want about a relationship. We got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again. Everybody has very inexpensive gasoline.
Vice President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question.
My response is that those people live in what they call fixed lives, who don't understand this. They live near chemical plants that in fact pollute, chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claremont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries and Marcus Hook in the Delaware River than there is any place including in Houston. When my mom hit my car when they were first straws to drive me to school, turn the windshield up, there'd be oil slipping with it. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it's not matter what you pay, it matters how you keep them safe. What do you do? You impose restrictions on the pollution that's coming out of those frontline communities.
Okay, I have one final question.
Transition from government industry, yes. The transition, that is a big statement. Because I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Because the oil industry pollutes significantly. I said, here's the deal. Let's get to it. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I stopped giving to the oil industry, I stopped giving them federal subsidies. You won't get federal subsidies to the gas, to solar and wind. Why are we giving it to the oil industry?
We actually do to solar and wind. And that's maybe the biggest statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement. Because basically what he's saying is he's going to destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that Texas? Will you remember that Pennsylvania?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and I have to get to the final question.
Takes everything out of context, but the point is that we have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is the energy production by 2050 total.
All right.
Is he going to get China to do it?
No, we're finished with
Is he going to get China to do
our
it?
final question. We have to move on to
I know.
promiscuous and the same title. Imagine this is your inauguration. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute.
We're not that company.
Totally successful as it was coming in from China. They were rebuilding it and they're doing record numbers of 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time. Before the plague came, just before, please get your calls for people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of the country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Mr. President, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote?
I will say, I'm the American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because there are enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with systemic racism. At the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country. Decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for a very robust hour and a half of fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for hosting us tonight. And most importantly, thank you to those watching tonight. Election Day is November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
The President of the United States obviously listened to his key advisors here. There was very little interrupting. They mostly followed the rules, but still focusing in on some of the major differences that they have. The American public clearly has a better appreciation of where these two men stand on policy issues of the day. Their family members are coming up on the stage right now. We're going to watch a little bit of this before they both disappear. But Jake, this was clearly a much different debate than the first one.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was definitely a more normal debate. President Trump behaved more like a regular person might theoretically. It's fair to say that Trump's supporters and office holders can relax for the night. They can exhale. He didn't set himself on fire tonight like he did with the first debate. He did like Pinocchio. I'm sure they will get to that in the fact-checking section. But beyond that, it's fair to say I think President Trump got in a couple clean hits when it came to Vice President Biden, when it came to the 1994 crime bill, when it came to politics for so long. He even probably got offensive on into his base successfully using Breitbart, Fox lingo that most voters have no idea what he's talking about. But he got good shots in there, however, based in reality, they are. The problem for the president, as I see it, is twofold. One, Joe Biden did fine. He had a fine performance. He definitely reached the threshold. And given that so much of this election is a referendum on Donald Trump, and he is the underdog, according to polls, Joe Biden will definitely disqualify himself. It was a fine performance. And the second problem is that Joe Biden scored points. He got his legs in on issues I think might affect voters more when it comes to the coronavirus pandemic, when it comes to healthcare. The fact that the Trump administration has not offered any sort of viable alternative to Obamacare. And then there was that rough moment that had to do with the fact that of the child family separation policy, there are still more than 500 kids that the Trump administration has not been able to place back with their parents. Obviously, so I think at the end of the day, the race has been fairly stable. I think, there might be some movement when it comes to soft Trump supporters who are unsure, feeling like, well, that's a more normal person in the last debate. And maybe there'll be some points for it in terms of getting black men who really hate that 1994 crime bill and their families on board, perhaps. But I don't see anything that will change the trajectory of the race in a significant way. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. We all described in colorful terms what we thought of the first presidential debate, and this was a debate. It's what Americans should expect when they are watching two people who want to be the leader of their country, the leader of the free world, to try to figure out where they stand on policy issues and where they are when it comes to their character. As you said, there were a lot of things that they don't get to that were just flat out lies, and they got off course talking about things that probably most people don't care about, especially in where we are in a pandemic and in very, very tough times. But Donald Trump listened to his advisors this time. I talked to a lot of them going into the debate. They told me exactly what they were trying to get him to do, which is much like they did the last time. He didn't listen last time. He did this time, for the most part. You know, that's sort of Joe Biden. He did what he practiced to do. Honestly, this debate is just the standard content from each debate, so that now you can understand what people are saying. And so in that respect, it was better because people could, really evaluate the differences between what was being said. But in terms of the substance of what was being said, the president fell into some of the same patterns, continued just to downplay the virus and the effect of this upswing that the country is currently in right now, heading into the holiday season. He kept doing something that I think Joe Biden actually tried to exploit, which is dividing the country into red states and blue states, repeatedly talking about the red states or the blue states are doing this, and the blue states
You're
are
Democrats.
this.
You're Democrats.
And if you watch the ads that are on television for the Biden campaign right now, the message right now is not about, coronavirus. It's not about fracking. It's not about any of those things. It's about unity. It's about bringing the country together. And you saw Joe Biden repeatedly saying, I'm not going to do that. And I think the president really walked back into that trap, because if you listen to him day to day, like we all do, you hear the same content that he gives off in all of his interviews, in his media gaggles. It happened on the debate stage in a calmer tone, but it still isn't bridging the gap with the voters.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that the president has been lying about the coronavirus pandemic since February. I mean, just straight up lying about it. It's going to be over. He's scared. I can't go through it, but you get the point. And we cover this every day. The three of us and all of the journalists at CNN cover this. And the truth of the matter is, the president did it again tonight. He said we're trying to get better, we're not going into a dark winter, the vaccine's going to be here in weeks. None of this is true. Every health expert, including every health expert, including those in his administration, Anderson, every single one says what Joe Biden said tonight. And they all say that what President Trump said tonight to the American people is not true, and this is the fundamental problem with the president's pitch, is that the country can see that he's lying about the pandemic.
Yeah, and so many people in this country are already voting and will vote by election day when it's good for that person. And I can ask, so I just for everybody's dictator. Fundamentally, if you're ahead and you get a draw, you win. And both of them were better than they were last time. But I thought that Joe Biden held his own, and that's all he had to do. The trajectory of this race did not change, and as Abby pointed out, he did some big business in terms of speaking as an American president and swiping at Trump for being so partisan, talking about red and blue states and so on. I thought those were powerful points, and it's one of the reasons why he is in the position he's in.
I think that I agree with David. I think that Biden was sharper tonight than he was at the last debate. Maybe that was because he wasn't given much of a chance. But I do think he scored some points really against against Trump, particularly on immigration, when they were talking about the children in cages. What struck me was when Trump said they are so well taken care of. It was just, well, A, it's a lie, and B, the statement itself is just so stunning to me that I almost couldn't believe that someone would really say that. And then, and just looking over the whole debate, overall, what the president was trying to do was present himself as the outsider, talking about you politicians, when in fact, he's been running the country for the last 4 years. And I thought that was pretty striking also, because that also isn't true.
Yeah, he showed that. He delivered that. You guys watched a different debate than I did. And absolutely, from everything I'm hearing from my folks right now, you guys watched a very different debate. I think Donald Trump was right on his game. I actually think that he completely skewered Joe Biden. You mentioned it before, they called Biden a politician looking in the camera. I think every time after that, everyone thought, oh, that line, here he is just looking in the camera, being typical politician. The other thing, I'll be curious to see how many people pick up on this. Joe Biden, at the end of that, had been looking at his watch. If you recall the campaign with George H.W. Bush, look at his watch because he was sweating it out. And I think that's what a lot of people were saying, that Joe Biden was probably a little shaky at the end and looking at his watch to see when this thing would be over. I think that's going to be the meme out of this debate.
And look, I think Donald Trump did his best ever, and his best was not good enough. Bottom line, it was the same stuff, just with a little bit less volume on it, but no plan for the future. A big apology for a bunch of failures, and then smacking it at Joe Biden all the time. But he literally did nothing that he didn't have always done. He sounded better, he looked better, but there was nothing there. There was nothing there, and some of the stuff he said, I agree with Lloyd. The shocking lack of humanity that he demonstrated talking about those children. And no apology. I mean, a human being just would have said, hey, I can't sleep at night thinking about those kids. I'm directing that care for those kids. For him to sit there and lie and say they're being treated was horrific. It was inhuman. And I disagree with you, Senator. With the average Joe Biden looked in the camera and cut through the crap and started talking about real stuff, I think it did work.
Very effective for saying, I can't just was talking about how those children are being taken care of now, not how they were taken care of then. I think everyone agrees how they were taken care of then was reprehensible. It's no longer the case.
Still in very nasty situations. The way that they are deliberately dehumanizing people at the border in this country is a stench in the
Are you Geneva? Geneva, I believe someone suggests I have a quick chat with you. You're the president of Young Gems, right? Can I interview you real quick? Alright, perfect. Let me go ahead and get some stuff set up out here. Let me get myself squared away. I have to get the light turned on and this turned off. I'll be ready in like 2 minutes.
Okay, awesome.
To Gloria's point, you said he attacked him for being a politician, and he was very effective there. What does it feel like to you when he stands up there and says, we're going to have a big, beautiful health care plan, and you can say that for 5 years? It was a classic politician. When he tries to unload all of this Giuliani stuff on Biden, it ends up in a long line about his tax returns and how he's been mistreated by the IRS and he can't release his tax returns. I mean, the fact is he can say you're a politician around not, but he behaved like a politician. I agree that he was far better than he was. And if I were you, I would be giddy too, because you had to fame that performance. And you did it. So he was much better than that. But there were these moments that reminded people exactly what bothers them about him. And some of them were about where he talked about the right wanting the blue state bailouts and talking about how the blue states are doing badly on coronavirus, which is patently untrue. The whole country is suffering through the same thing. And every time Biden got to say, I am running to be an American president, not the president of my base, I think that he rang up points with those voters who might be thinking one way or the other.
I'll be back. I probably get a quick break in here what to look for tonight as we break down the debate. It's the season to add a little warmth to life out here. Though the past year has been an unexpected one, all 38,000 of us are ready to help you make the most of this fall. Everything you need, everyday low prices. So you can take care of the ones who count on you. Prepare for those shorter days, cooler nights, and more months, more family time. Prepare together, enjoy together, stronger together. Tractor Supply.
One of the things that the president totally failed with, he spent points on what Joe Biden not wanting to get off fossil fuels in 2030.
For the state of Pennsylvania, is a big issue there. Right, Rick Santorum, you know that. So the politician was making a play for the state of California, and the president, Joe Biden, has said, you have to, or he was working out, but eventually, in the distant future, obviously, you have to phase it out. I made a huge point about, the president made a huge point about that. Where I thought he really lost his way because he has no answer is health care. Because, he kept saying to Joe Biden, you had so many years to do X, Y, and Z, why didn't you do it? Well, the president had so many years if he needed Obamacare, and his repealing Obamacare is in the Supreme Court trying to get rid of Obamacare. Why haven't they replaced it with anything? There is no answer for that. And Republicans can't agree on what they want.
I agree. It's a pathetic answer and frankly, he's had a pathetic answer. I just wrote up today in the Hill with Ray's former healthcare advisor saying, hey, you have an answer, Mr. President. Actually, conservatives have put forward a plan that actually will reduce premiums and increase the number of insured, and do all the things that you want to do. Please endorse it. So I'm as frustrated as most Republicans are I'm as frustrated. But here's the bottom line. What the president doesn't talk about is Medicare premiums are down 30% since the beginning of this term. Prescription drug premiums for Medicare Part B are down 12% since the beginning of this term. Why does he talk about the successes of actually lowering the Medicare premium, lowering the as a result of Obamacare, and some of the things he's done? As long as he's in trouble with
I'm sorry.
He's already said, no regrets. He's standing on the graves of 250,000 Americans. No regrets will be back. And then no plan going forward. So what he do? He covers up that failure. And he covers up all those things. Like trying to dirty up Biden. And no president who was proud of his past 4 years would ever mention Hunter Biden or any of that stuff. They would be doing exactly what you're saying, pounding away on successes. The reality is, you have a president who knows that he is a colossal failure, and he has to distract Americans by attacking somebody that nobody believes is corrupt, and nobody believes is a bad person. He's wasting a lot of time on that tonight.
The healthcare issue, I think a significant thing happened that actually helps Biden, which is Trump was bearing down on him about socialized medicine, people are going to have to give up their health care, and Biden turned to Trump and he said, I think he's confusing me with someone else. He's talking about Bernie Sanders and the others he ran against. He said, he's running against Joe Biden. Joe Biden, I beat all those people because I disagreed with him on this issue. And he's absolutely right about that. He took a more moderate position that preserved healthcare, that built on the Affordable Care Act, and I thought that was an important piece of business for him. For any voter out there who is confused by Trump's rhetoric about socialized medicine.
Hold on, if you recall, you guys discussed the whole public option thing when you guys were debating Obamacare back when, and you abandoned it. Why? Because of its impact on private insurance. There's no question. You put a public option in here, you're going to destroy a lot of private insurance market. So, again, there's no effective case against it. But the reality is, Biden's plan is not going to help the private market.
That is not right. That's not right. Public option was made. Public option was made because there were a few Democrats with ties to the insurance industry who opposed the
Destroy private insurance.
No. So that was why it was in there. And you know what? There's enormous public support for this. Just as there's enormous public support for the Affordable Care Act. 55%, I think, of today. That's not on the right side of this issue. If you want to be on the side of the large majority of it,
and Jones, in those states that John King right before the debate was showing, in these key battleground states where polls are actually quite close. I mean, nationally, national polls are one thing, but all that matters is in these key states, the polls are pretty close. Did this tonight change that dynamic in any way? Did it change the dynamics of the race? I would be surprised if it did. I do want to give Biden some credit. It took courage to say what he said. For him to say, he had committed to transitioning all time and responsibility to better business model. In fact, these energy companies could have much better business model. Even the energy companies themselves are talking about this transition. But for Joe Biden, not done with it. We are going to move response to that. That takes courage in an election where he's looking at Texas, as the senator just said, where he's looking at Pennsylvania. But that's the thing about Joe Biden. He actually believes in some stuff. He's willing to take some stands on some stuff. And they're breaking more jobs, a lot more jobs putting up solar panels than they're going to be on the oil rigs in the next several years. And he's willing to make that case as well. I'm very proud that Joe Biden stood up for his beliefs and stood up for better jobs in the future rather than pretending to back I
I'll tell you another thing that came out of Joe Biden's mouth that was kind of surprising to me because it was so stunning and frank. And we hear all this back and forth all the time now, so maybe it just kind of floats over our heads. I was trying to make a joke about Donald Trump, and he called him Abraham Lincoln over here. Of course, Trump didn't get the joke, and he got very angry, but he said, "You're one of those racist presidents in modern American history, period." And Donald Trump was talking about the 94 crime bill and all the rest of it. We know the history of that. We don't have to go through that again. But he made a statement, sort of like a blanket statement here. And he said, "This guy's a dog whistle is very and we're used to that kind of language like this. And this can be one candidate just called the other candidate a racist. And,
Thank you.
Joe Biden got in the gutter and Donald Trump didn't.
Well, no, I won't make that argument because I think that
it's true.
I think there's no reason to say
Yeah. Donald Trump was racist before he was president of the United States. No, that's not true. But Donald Trump, other than the second parking, this is convicted for crimes that they did not commit.
He says, justice is the rule of everyone. We'll talk to Van Jones about how they have this president into that kind of reform that he went into kicking and screaming.
Three weeks ago, we were talking about him refusing to condemn the Proud Boys. So, I mean, it isn't as if Gloria's pulling that out of the air. This has been part of the president's political project. He does dog whistle, and he does stand down when he's called on to condemn racist organizations, and that has been a problem for him. And you know that as well. Makes you uncomfortable as well.
This is a complicated thing. First of all, the right wing always says nobody called him a racist before he was president. It's just not true. Once he started on the birther thing, that shocked a lot. Donald Trump did have allies in the black community. Donald Trump had been a supporter of civil rights causes. In fact, Donald Trump had been a supporter of Kamala Harris being a But when you down the rate of the birther thing, that changes your relationship with the black community. That did. And then since then, he's trying to do two things that don't go well together. He's trying to put together a peanut butter and ketchup sandwich. On the one hand, he has done good stuff on criminal justice, on opportunity zones, and on black colleges. That's true. But he's also appealed to white supremacist organizations and other stuff. And so what continues to happen is, I think that campaign wants credit for the good stuff they've done, and they don't take responsibility for the horrific climate that they have emboldened and helped in this country. If you are a black parent or a parent of color trying to raise your kids in this environment, you do not appreciate the role that Donald Trump has played in poisoning the atmosphere. And so the two things can be true at the same time. But we will find out in a few days if this is they're trying to do. On the one hand, saying doing something they try to do, but then emboldening our worst enemies is a good strategy. I think it's not a good strategy.
Yeah, the reality is that the black community prior to COVID had the lowest unemployment rate, lowest poverty rates. I mean, you can't make up what he has done in focusing in on minority communities and trying to do things that particularly lift them up and spend time and effort, do lots of events at the White House, do lots of, it's not just a talking point. He's done the work, and he's not getting credit for it. It's a do to me, it's just, it doesn't make sense.
Well, listen, there's two things that can be true at the same time. I appreciate the fact that they have done some reach out. I appreciate the fact that they have been trying to grow their party out. Frankly, it makes the African American community in a much better position than both parties take everything seriously. So I appreciate that. But the problem is, what you guys don't want to take responsibility for, is that first of all, he lied on Obama's record. Obama did do stuff on criminal justice reform. The Fair Sentencing Act, clemency, and in fact, the Department of Justice under Obama, it was a good thing for criminal justice that Judge Sessions undid. So both of these presidents, Obama and Trump, Obama did better administratively, but didn't do as well legislatively. Trump did better legislatively, but did bad job. This is complicated stuff. And then when you just want to try to politicize it, I think it's not right. I don't think most Americans that we have a president that really understands what we're going through and the damage that he is doing to the climate of the country. Has Trump not gotten credit for some stuff he's done yet? But it's all his fault. It's his own fault because it's something he does that pollutes the atmosphere. This is his fault.
We're going to dedicate his first fact check of the night. Thanks very much. Excellent discussion. Nathaniel Dallas got his first fact check of the night here, and he's going to be doing plenty of them over the next few hours of our special coverage. Daniel, let's start with the big picture on how much the candidates got right or wrong tonight.
Well, President Trump was better behaved tonight, but he lied more. This was just a bombardment of dishonesty, much of which we've heard before at his campaign rallies, about subjects big and small, important stuff like the coronavirus pandemic, about Biden's policies, about his own record, about Democrats' record. It was just on and on. Biden was imperfect. There were at least a few false, misleading, or lacking in context claims from him. But for a fact checker, you're kind of sitting there with Biden. Occasionally, you're like, "Oh, that's wrong." With Trump, you're like that "I Love Lucy" episode in the Chocolate Factory. You know, you don't know which one to pick up because there's just so much. And so, again, with this president, we just see a constant barrage incessantly of false and misleading stuff.
You know, Daniel, the president's handling of the pandemic certainly was a major topic, certainly during the first part of this debate. The president claimed that at one point that 2.2 million Americans were initially expected to die from the coronavirus. Listen to this.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China.
Right, Daniel, so that 2.2 million figure, accurate?
So both it's a real figure, but Trump falsely describes it, and he's continued to do this at his rallies. Now, what this figure said, it was a report from British academics, and it said that in the US, if no US government did anything to mitigate the virus, to fight the virus, and no citizen took social distancing action, then we could see 2 million plus deaths. But this was not an expectation, it was not a realistic estimate. This was a figure put out there to say, this is how bad it gets if you just let this virus run its course, which of course the government was not about to do.
Let's listen to a claim made by the president, Daniel, about the state of the coronavirus pandemic right now.
It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
All right, President keeps insisting the virus is going away. It clearly is not going away. The numbers are off.
It's not going away. Well, I did an analysis. I found the president had said between February and October 10th, Trump had said 38 times that it was going away. It was wrong 8 months ago, and it's wrong today. As he said, the numbers are terrible. We're now back about 60,000 confirmed new cases per day. The president doesn't like to use this metric of cases. He dismisses it. Well, hospitalizations are also rising. They're setting records in many states, and sadly, deaths are now rising again, as they usually do, with a lag after cases start rising. So we're not rambling the train. It's not going away. Things are getting worse in the United States.
1,100 Americans died just yesterday in one day. Daniel, we're going to be getting back to you. I know you bring a lot more fact checking than Jake over here.
Thanks, Wolf. I think one of the things that we need to talk about is, in addition to coronavirus, the manner in which President Trump talks about this, because this is obviously something that is affecting all of us, even if we haven't lost some of the Vice President Biden tried to address people who have specifically lost people. You know, that's over 50,000 Americans who died from this. And it's just because of the because that is what the Biden people keep hitting, what Joe Biden keeps hitting, and it is an area that Donald Trump is not able to communicate effectively at all. If he possesses it, which I'm not sure. And we saw it time and time again during this debate, talking about, I mean, very cold-heartedly about the more than 500 kids who were separated from their parents and the state policy by the Trump Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, and how they haven't been able to find their parents. And then you also just heard things like people being deported, undocumented immigrants being deported and not coming back to their court date. And then President Trump said, except for some of the lowest IQs, and just the inability to talk about what we're all going through, even if it's just your kids are struggling because they're learning on their computers.
The key moment that really encapsulated the president not understanding how to empathize on the coronavirus was that he repeated, as he often does, we're learning to live with it. And then Joe Biden came back and said, actually, we're dying with it. And I think that really was the moment on the virus that encapsulated how this president only wants to focus on reopening. He doesn't want to acknowledge the sacrifices that the American people have made. I know many of the president's advisors and supporters would like him to do because the vice president doesn't. When he talks about coronavirus, he says, I want to thank the American people for doing all that you've done all of these months. President Trump almost never did it. I don't know what a quarantine is. He was asked directly, do you understand why black families have the top? The president literally never answered the question and never attempted to answer the question. That could have been a moment for him to say something, to do something, to change the perception that some of these opportunistic talking points about the First Step Act and about opportunity zones have more depth behind it, and he refused to take it.
Instead, he talked about being the least racist person in the room, the room where there was a
well, I can sure that Reno is less racist than
even bring another point, which was really interesting to me, frankly, about empathy and about the coronavirus, which the president wrapped that all into one thing. And when Biden did his thing, he looked at the camera and said, and there are people out there who want to see somebody at the table, somebody who doesn't have somebody at home, going to sleep. The president attacked him for being a typical politician.
It was more this isn't about my family, it's not about his family, it's about your family.
Right, but he was at an empathetic moment.
Right.
And what the president did was try to call him out and say, that's please, that's malarkey, that's not real. He's just being a politician. I don't know that people are going to mind that, because even if you're not really a big fan of Joe Biden's policies, he is genuinely empathetic. He means that. And so what Trump was trying to do globally for the whole 90 minutes was to say, I might be the president of the United States, I might live in the White House, but I'm still the disruptor, and he is the longtime politician. And the fact that he took it that far in that moment was risky.
It's interesting you say that, and I agree. I think that does sum up the night, both Biden saying that and Trump's response. And I think one of the reasons why, in my view, it did not work, although I'm sure it worked with the MAGA bubble, because they think that anybody that expresses affection for their son or empathy for someone they don't know is weak. But I think that's what it's indicative of. President Trump lives in an atmosphere of disinformation, false information, reinforcing itself. And that's why some of the punches he threw at Joe Biden, I don't think landed. Because unless we're Sean Hannity, you probably have no idea.
Good, how are you?